So, the focus is essentially still to create messages that go to space about humans, to try explain who we are as a species, to try figure out how to communicate over vast timescales. And then I'm also going to go through a bit about our two main projects, the World Heritage Archive and the Space Club, talk about a new project. I'm going to have to update the slide, actually. And then we have a launch date, the 30th of December. How exciting is that? And basically, we're going to be launching on the 30th of December. I understand these days it takes about 8 days to get to the moon. I'm not sure. We're going to be having a launch party, obviously, and then we're going to be with bated breath until the landing party, which is going to be even more exciting. So, yeah, everybody, this is the first one that we've done, and it's going to the moon. Then we also have two other missions where it's going to be going on as well. So we're going to be going to the moon again, this time to the South Pole. So the Mare Crisium crater, where it's first landing, is this one on the top. I think I've highlighted over there. It's over there. So when you look at the moon, you'll know that something that you have been a part of is landing over there. And then the next one is going to be landing on the South Pole down here. And then we are going to be leaving the solar system on an asteroid at some point, non-disclosed yet, because we don't even know what asteroid it is. But we are on that mission, and the company that is doing that, Firefly, has not given us which asteroid, because I think not Firefly, Astroforge. And these missions are with LifeShip. So Ben is in the room. Thank you very much for organizing that. And then we're also starting to work on our Aspire 2. So this is all a part of Aspire 1. And if we get any new missions that come up, we're going to be sending the Aspire 1 and also partner content. And then this is kind of an open invitation to people to come help and to start working on Aspire 2. I'll take you guys through my new favorite tool, which is Milanote. But essentially, we're going to be looking at hardware this time a little bit more, and we're going to be looking at sort of, what are the ways and devices and technologies that we can use. They're going to last a long time. Cover art, that's going to be a big thing again. I will talk a little bit about the Artists in Residence program that Amy is launching, which I will send an email on as well. And then we're also going to be looking at navigation. So we're going to come back to the video game aspect of, how do video game designers use small amounts of information to create context. And, obviously, if you've come to a couple of meetings, context is a thing we talk about a lot. So that's going to be fun. And then looking again and still sort of working out how we can go from sort of this pictograph, cover message into actually explaining how we communicate and what the ways are of communication. So the same team are working on that. And that's a fun and cool thing. And then actual content and collections of content. And I'm going to kind of go a bit more into the collection of content, because I think it's the area that now I have been probably spending most of my time on. And not me alone, but myself and a lot of time with the Global Sound Movement. I saw Paresh is in the room. Looking forward to him coming to Cape Town. So these are essentially our two main programs. So the Space Club and the Girl Guides and Scouts. And essentially the Space Club is more focused on the Global South. Girl Guides is focused on the Global North and Scouts. But I will go into the next slide and show you how amazing it has been in our pilot program with the Scouts and Girl Guides. And then we're also starting a museum collective. So we want museums to participate by sharing content with us. We want to potentially help to digitize new content, again, particularly in the Global South where it's needed. And then we also want to see if we can put together museum exhibitions. So we're speaking to the Smithsonian currently about this, and we're basically trying to go into their archive in the beginning. And then we did our first pilot program for the Scouts in basically an incredibly rushed, and thank you, Paresh, Jota Jati event, which is essentially the largest digital Scout event of the year. So 2 million Scouts participating. And we basically got participation from 50 Scout troops from some amazing places: Algeria, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Pakistan, Malaysia. We got a whole bunch of themes that were submitted as well. And 8.8 gigabytes of stories and language and sound and music. So a really, really fantastic pilot program. And again, just a thank you to to those participating on that project. If you were a part of the run up to this, or if you were involved in this, a massive, massive thank you. We had so many changes, days before, weeks before, and months before, that I had promised myself I would never do another event. And now I'm kind of excited. I'm like, let's go. Let's do another event. And then the original event was the Mars in the Minds of Humans. So this is the event kind of on the bottom right over here in the blue, where Carl Sagan, Ray Bradbury, Arthur C. Clarke, Bruce Murray had got together in the 70s and did this talk. And we were recreating this talk with Lady Okafor and Anne Durian, Carl Sagan's wife, and Nadia Drake. Shishin Lee had, we were waiting for confirmation on that. But we've also got now a workshop that's going to be coming up sort of middle of next year as well, which I'll start to give more details on. By the way, Cami designed this poster. People were fighting over this poster after the event. I will also be sending out an email for those who did the raffle, and I will update on that. And thank you. That's my little spiel in the beginning. What we're going to do is I'm going to do very quick fingers spotlighting. So the three speakers today, Mark, David, and Amy, I'm going to open it up to them for, let's say, a 30-second to 1 minute introduction of who they are, what they do in the world. And then we're going to go into like a 2 to 3 minute 3 to 5 minute opening statement from each of them on time and how they think about time. Then we're going to open it up as a discussion between them, and then we're going to open it up as a group discussion. So I'm going to start with David. He's in the top left hand of my corner, so he is the closest to my spotlight. And if you can give us an introduction, David, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Professor David Kipping. I'm a faculty member at Columbia University at the Department of Astronomy, and I lead a research team here called the Cool Worlds Lab. I'm very passionate about the search for life, intelligence, other new worlds. Moons especially is one of my focus points in my research. And one of the things that I've been really drawn to in this group is actually one of today's topics is just thinking about deep time. So this should be a lot of fun to get into.
Amazing. Thank you, David. Amy, if you could give us a quick intro from your side. Cool background.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Amy Carl. I am an ultra-contemporary artist and designer. I'm usually based in the San Francisco Bay Area, but right now I'm setting up a show in Berlin, actually on my quantum art. And I, at time, mostly from the perspective of biological time. How does it manifest in our bodies? So what is our relationship to time, and how can really understanding what it means to be present and in the now affect the far futures? And I explore that through my works. My research and my artworks can become portals into looking into that future.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Mark, where are you? There you are.
So I'm based in South Africa, in Johannesburg. My day job is that I'm a practicing lawyer and I specialize in constitutional law, but I run a philosophy podcast called Brain in a Vat. And one of our earliest episodes was on the philosophy of time and time travel. And we produced a little book about that called Teleporters and Time Travel. So I'll be starting with a little thought experiment when I get a chance to chat. And every episode of Brain and Vat starts with a thought experiment or a real life case to get into the theory and excite people's minds.
Amazing. Thank you so very much. So I'm gonna hand it, I think this is a good little order. So I'm gonna hand it back over to David. And if each person could basically start with just kind of how they think about time, sort of the things that kind of come up for them. If we could maybe keep it to like 3 to 5 minutes, I think that would be kind of a good amount of time. And yeah, let's get going.
Yeah, sure. So I was actually in a meeting a couple of weeks ago about time, and it's kind of inspired me a little bit. So I wanted to mention this meeting and where it's taken my thoughts. So the meeting was in Houston. It was called the future of life on Earth and astrobiology. And it was very eclectic. As these meetings often are here, it brought together, anthropologists, archaeologists, geneticists, astronomers, geologists, all sorts of people. And the thing, there's many stuff I could talk about, but the thing I'm most struck about with the astronomer's perspective and the geologist's perspective of time is just how vast it is. I think we have very little conception of its just enormous scale. So just some numbers. I mean, the Earth was formed 4.5 billion years ago. The oceans formed about 4.4 billion years ago. And life emerged almost straight away as soon as that happened. So we had about 4 billion years from the earliest life forms until today. And not only was the Earth inhabited, but most of that time it was just single-celled life. So we only really had animals and multicellular life emerge on this planet about 550 million years ago during a period called the Cambrian explosion that happened on the Earth. So I think that's staggering. For 3.5 billion years, Earth had life on it. It was a pale blue dot hanging in space. It was inhabited, had oceans, it had a biosphere, but it was all just single-celled things. And that was it on this planet. And then we had animals emerge only relatively recently. Now, if you look ahead about the future, how much time is left? And you might have heard that the sun will eventually grow into a giant and engulf the Earth at one point. But that's actually not what will destroy the Earth's biosphere. The Earth's biosphere will probably end much more prematurely than that due to the gradual warming of the sun. So the sun was about 30% less luminous when the Earth was born than it is today. It's actually a really interesting paradox as to how the Earth was even habitable 4.5 billion years ago, because it should be quite cold given that fact. But we know this quite well from studying other stars, that this is what happens. Now, if you project this forward, eventually the sun produces so much heat that it basically knocks the Earth out of the habitable zone altogether. And so this number for a long time was thought to be just under 1 billion years from now. So in 0.9 billion years or 900 million years from now, the Earth will become uninhabitable. There was a classic paper by Kader and Casting published in Nature in 1992. But just this week, and it was presented at this meeting, there's been a reevaluation of that number using more up-to-date climate modeling and modern information we've obtained since then. And it's actually doubled it. So now we think there's 1.8 billion years left. And just think about that. We've gone from single-celled organisms to us in 500 million years. And we have more than 3.5 times that left on this planet for intelligent life to continue to thrive. So I like to think that we might not be here forever. I don't think we're going to be here forever. We'll probably knock ourselves out one way or the other at some point. But there are so many creatures on this planet with forms of intelligence that I think we should expect that intelligence will reemerge on this planet and technologies will reemerge on this planet, because there was just an unimaginably vast episode of time left for this to happen. And that's why this project is so exciting to me, because we have an opportunity to communicate with another intelligent civilization just through time, not through space. And I think that's what this project offers the prospect of. So I'll stop there.
Amazing. David, thank you very much. Amy?
I think actually maybe could we call the next speaker minus like really philosophical? Might be best at the end.
Sure. Mark, you're up.
Sure. I look forward to being philosophically outdone. So I was enjoying a whiskey with my grandfather the other day, and we're both very strong admirers of whiskey and talking about the delights of Japanese whiskey. And then I sort of noticed that a few of the bottles in my cabinet had gone missing, and I flew into a blind rage, and I picked up my handgun and I shot him dead in the head, sprayed all of his blood all over my whiskey. And then I started thinking, I could have gotten that whiskey back if only I had a time machine. So I went to my friend Jason Werbelov's house, the guy I run Brain of At with, sci-fi writer, and also happens to have a time machine in this place. And I thought, let me nip this problem right in the bud. I'm going to go back to a time when my grandfather was a teenager, before he met my grandmother. And I go to the time machine, I've got my revolver, and I see him walking into his childhood house, and I aim and I shoot. The question is it possible for me to kill my grandfather in this method? Now, the first time it seemed obviously like I could. I could press the gun against his head and I could shoot him and blow his brains out. But if I could do that in the first case, well, then he would never have met my grandmother, never have sired my father, and I would never have been born, which means I never would have been able to go and shoot him. So this is the grandfather paradox. And one way in which this is resolved is to say that it is impossible to change the past. So philosophers can talk to you about logical consistency. We can't tell you about the physics of it. And we know that once something has happened in the past, it is not possible to change it. So a lot of popular science fiction around time travel is this idea that you could undo something terrible that has occurred, like stopping the assassination of Kennedy. And the idea is that if something has happened, it cannot also not happen. That would be a contradiction. So in all those cases where, Kennedy is saved and something else occurs, we're not really dealing with the situation of time travel. We're dealing with a parallel world. And the worry with that parallel world is that it doesn't solve the problem we wanted solved. So we wanted a world where Kennedy was never killed, but that is an impossibility. One way of thinking about this is to think about your favorite novel. And you can imagine various versions of that novel being written, that they sat in draft form by your favorite writer. But once that novel came into being, that is what it is. Romeo and Juliet can never not die in the Shakespeare definitive version of that novel. There is no way to ever undo that. We can imagine a myriad of other versions of Romeo and Juliet where other things occur. But it would be a contradiction to say that in the definitive account of Romeo and Juliet, that they don't commit suicide, they don't die. And so that's one way of thinking about time. Another problem that you might have for something like time travel is whether the past still has an existence. Is it like earlier pages in a novel that you've read? Or, as some will determine, the idea that the only thing that could possibly exist is now, the present. That when you're reading the book, all the other pages are being burnt by history. And so that would, of course, forbid time travel. So you have to have a particular account of time to allow for the possibility of time travel.
What is your personal relationship with time? And what informs that? How does it manifest in your body? How does it manifest in your mind? We have biological time, which humans know differently because we've internalized this false concept of time, a concept that we're created. And we're the only species who has the most heart attacks on Monday mornings when we go back to work because we've made this false sense of time and we have so deeply internalized it that it has shaped how we live and we die. If not for a time structure which we've constructed and deeply internalized, it's not real until we have made it such. So is this the time that we want? Is this how we want to engage? And if not, how do we change it? How do we work with this perception? How do we see it in a different way? There's also this death time, those moments, if you've ever been with someone when they're passing away, where moments are stretched or they stand still and time is not normal time. Those final days, hours, those moments of transition, time extends, time dilates. You don't know what day it is, what week it is. You're both hyper present and it's also like so slow. It's a very different relationship to time than what our normal days are when we're working. So how do we merge an internal now, the idea of the present moment with a concept of past and future? And when we think on cosmic scales, deep time in the far future, for example, sending messages on billion-year materials, how do we think through that? For me, really a spiritual maturity or just an emotional maturity in general came when I started to truly understand the present moment and what that meant, not conceptually, but physically in my body. And how do we then understand that relationship between the now and the future next week, the future in deep time, in the far future, like as far past as dinosaurs were behind us, or that far into the future, if not further. This is an installation I recently made, Echoes from the Valley of Existence. And this is an interactive, adaptive, and responsive environment that considers the ways that we live on outside of our bodies. The prompt for this piece, the commission, was to consider the future of death, life 100 years or more in the future. And I was thinking about these biodigital remains that we leave, like the biological traces like DNA, biodigital remains like our biometrics in the airport, and digital remains like images, text, and how those can tell a story about us after we pass away. And then artwork was really incredible in person, but I wanted to give people this opportunity to really think about how their echoes would last longer than their interactions there, than their lifetime. So as part of this experience, I gave people the opportunity through Life Shift, thank you for the sponsorship, to leave DNA and messages for the future. So they have the opportunity to leave DNA and messages for the future that would be encapsulated and placed on the moon. And to me, this was like where the art really began. This question of, would you leave a message or DNA? Why or why not? Would you leave your pictures? Would you leave one or the other? And this makes us really about what we leave behind and the potential impact through time and space, what we're doing in this very moment, how this can echo on to far futures, to future humans, to beyond post-humans that may find this. What if someone left their DNA that had COVID? Would that affect a future generation? Would this be like opening King Tut's tomb, where we learn all of these different things about a future, about a past civilization that are humans, but so different than us too? What is important to leave and why, if we're going to be sending this? The now is both this fulcrum and a of power in a lot of ways, and a bridge to the deep future. Or we must now in this moment be good ancestors to our future. The present isn't merely a moment in time, but it's a profound point of access to eternity, to the eternal, where the past, present, and future, all possible transformations converge at once. In this way, the time is both a medium and an evolving consciousness all in one. And so I was also asked to create the cover artwork for the modern iteration of the Golden Record that's being put together by Life Ship, and which also Interstellar has their Aspire 1 message on. This is due to be launched into deep space late this year, and then also it's going to be hitching a ride on the asteroid that Nick mentioned as well. And this Golden Archive is a compendium containing huge amounts of human knowledge. It includes DNA of humans and many plant and animal species and AI LLM. So this is, if we think about, we're now almost 50 years out from the original Golden Record. What advancements have we made? What can we share in that last 50 years? And how do we communicate this story of Earth to extraterrestrials? How do we make a future humans or others? And this is interesting because this one includes DNA and seeds that could potentially restart elements of our world. And it's a significant design project on many levels, like significant questions about what should be included or omitted in a depiction and conveying such a universal message. And a big part of this challenge was to, think about how we depict a clear representation to potentially be understood by beings with no prior knowledge of Earth or human culture and may not have sensory perception. It also definitely clearly references time as well from the pulsar map. And I'm happy to explain more about that project further. But in relationship to time, to me, working on these projects enables us to delve deeper into the essence of what it means to be human. What ideals do we aspire to share? And by envisioning these ideals, we're really empowered to design towards it, crafting these narratives that not only traverse space and time, but also encapsulate our most profound hopes for the future. In this way, the Golden Archive becomes not just the vessel of information, but also a beacon of aspirations. But the questions to me are much even bigger than that, because it becomes with this profound responsibility. And if we're going to be sending DNA on billion-year materials and a seed bank, this could potentially, if it could crash into the right conditions and potentially spawn new life, it can also wreak havoc on a new ecosystem. So when we work with projects like sending messages to space that carry DNA and are on billion-year materials, sending insights and culture to the far future, time becomes both practical and transcendent at the same time. It's bridging human and post-human, beyond human experience. Our messages in the materials, even though they're physical, they can embody a kind of presence, symbols of how this moment in time can retain meaning and connection across eons. And when we see this, we see the deep responsibility to the future, in which a conscious awareness of the now includes this responsibility for our long-term impact and the choices that we make in the present moment, how they're going to affect the far future. And time itself then becomes a canvas in a way for an evolving consciousness, an active, co-creative flow that encompasses the immediate now, the immediate presence, biological, cosmic cycles. It's greater than our understanding. And yet we have this innate ability, primitive ability to tap into it at any moment. We have opportunities and mirrors through time. And when we look at time, truly look at what that means, it all collapses. For example, like in quantum time, where time emerges as a probabilistic field where past, present, and future all coexist, where events are interconnected, where they're existing in multiple states or moments simultaneously, suggesting that our understanding of past, present, and future could be more of our perception than an absolute reality. As if time were a spatial dimension we move through rather than a flow. And if this is the case, where are we located in time? Where do you locate yourself in time? What's your relationship to it? In the vast expanse of existence, time, to me, emerges as a paradox. And the more that I work with it, the more that I see it's like a river in constant flow, yet all water. And here in this present moment, we can swim in all paths, all possible futures, and float in it at the same time. This moment, this breath contains within it the boundless nature of time itself. And when that breath stops, it may still exist in another way and in another time. So what do we leave from this breath to the future? Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Amy. If you could stop sharing.